Hey, hello out there in what would we call this, Steve? Social media land,
in podcast land.
podcast land, and social media land, and trend land, and anything out there, channel land. Welcome to A Real Point of View. I am Greg Morgan, your host, and I'm the Real Movie Guy. And joining me today is my co host, Mr. Stephen C., and he is the man who doesn't pick a bad movie. So, with that being said, today it's Steve versus Greg or Greg versus Steve, however you want to look at it. We are looking at the top five martial artists that we felt were some of the best martial artists in film, and not just the big screen, but also the small screen. So movies and television. And we're going to do this a little differently. We're not going to go by just the actor, but we're going to go by the character that they played, which is what we were looking at when we were watching these different productions as to the reason why we like these martial artists so much. So, um, I don't know, Steve. Did you think this was a good subject matter for our show today?
I feel like it's a great subject matter for our show today. It's something that you and I both, when it comes to movies, are very passionate about. And with the amount of movies that come out every year based on some either form of martial arts, some person, or mythology in martial arts, it's a genre that grosses millions and millions of dollars every year from people reading, writing, watching, and uh, wa- uh, but not just watching movies, but watching performances on stage plays and going into museums and using this stuff in their everyday life in order to protect themselves or find a spiritual or mental balance within themselves.
Yeah, I mean, you know, martial arts as we know it and we understand it here in the West is an ancient art that has been practiced for different, for I guess, for centuries by different parts of the world, especially Asia, but not just Asia. Every continent has its own thing, but what we're talking about right now is martial arts from Asia. So we're talking about basically the things like Jeet Kune Do, Kung Fu, Gung Fu, Karate, Taekwondo, Hapkido, um, the essence of the samurai warriors, the ninjas, all the things that here in the West we've gobbled up over time and have quote unquote made our own. But I'm still thinking, there's nothing like people from the origin that make it even more special. So we've got a host of different people tonight, ladies and gentlemen, who we felt made us feel the best when we're watching them on film in the different movies and or television shows that we've been watching. So should we let the audience know who we picked, Steve? Why it's Greg versus Steve, Steve versus Greg, and see if we either agree or disagree, or agree to disagree, or agree and say, uh, do we concede or not concede, kind of thing.
I think with everybody that we're going to talk about today, there's a lot of, give and take with because you're picking five guys and I'm picking five guys, and I wanted to make sure that we weren't crossing over and doing the same people or the same characters or even the same kind of characters that were being done from movie to movie. That way, our audience and us, if we hadn't seen these movies, we could go out and enjoy them for the uniqueness to them. And
Oh, excuse me.
but I already know there's one on your list that
I am so sorry, ladies and
is
gentlemen. I've got a cold. I should have prefaced that earlier. So I'm going to try to mute myself when I sneeze, but okay, I'm back. Sorry about that.
but
I'm gonna try to do that.
there's a guy on your list, and that there's actually two guys on your list that are, when it comes to martial arts and what we know here in the West, that are just above and beyond, anything we can put down, anything that goes in movies.
Ah, I'm so sorry.
So it's okay.
Please
So,
bear
but
with me,
yeah,
ladies and gentlemen. It's been a rough day, a rough week, but a rough day definitely.
Mhm.
Yeah, Steve. Well, what two people are you referring to?
Uh, Referring to Bruce Lee and the man who trained Bruce Lee, Ip Man.
Well, here's the thing. Why don't we tell our audience, although you've given a precursor, who actually we have? So, since we're doing this
Uh-huh.
by their character as opposed to the artists themselves, I mean, of course, we'll let you know who the artist is if you don't know already. But the artists that I chose were in Enter the Dragon. Lee, his name is Lee, and it is Bruce Lee. Then into the Badlands, and the character is Sonny, which is played by Daniel Wu. Then I have Blade, um, of the Blade trilogy, which is played by Wesley Snipes. And then Marco Polo. In this movie, we have 100 Eyes. That's the character, and that's played by Tom Wu. And then lastly, in the movie Ip Man, this is played by Donnie Yen. So that's my five, Steve, up against your five. So who are your five?
Okay, my five in starting off in the movie Blood and Bone, playing Bone is Michael Jai White. In the movie Bloodsport, I have Jean Claude Van Damme playing Frank Dukes. On Bach is my next movie, and I have Tony Jaa playing a man named Ting. You gotta love all these guys with one name. It
Right.
just makes you don't mess with a guy with one name.
That's right.
In the movie Raid Redemption, I have Iko Uwais. I'm probably butchering that name, and I apologize sincerely. Playing Rama, and then I chose Jason Statham in the movie The Transporter as Frank Martin, and that's the five that I got. Kind of more of a new age five
Okay.
instead of like you got a couple new age guys and some old school where I got one middle school and a couple new and all new age.
So let me ask you a question, Steve. What impressed you about these five guys that you picked? And of the five guys, who impressed you the most?
um, Based on the movies, the guy that impressed me the most is Michael Jai White playing Bone. The reason for that is everything he did seemed so seamless,
Hmm.
and at no given point in time was did he feel like he was out of his element and not in control of any combat situation he was in. And he has a predictive nature about himself where he knows how to make you do exactly what he wants you to do, and he knows exactly how he's going to catch. He's like a chess player when it comes to fighting, and he's 3 moves ahead at every given point in time. The thing that really drew me is the way they become their characters, even though these people aren't they're characters on a screen. You can feel like they're real. You can feel like this is somebody that you could see at some point if you've studied or you've read, done research on martial arts. There are people out there that have done things that are, kind of what beyond what you feel like someone should be able to do. And some of us have seen people
Hmm.
do things that
Right,
feel
right.
like it's beyond the realm that they could possibly do it. And to really see these people get into their characters, bring them to life, and it it really enthralls you and makes you get into the movies you're watching.
Yeah, yeah, I agree. And I think that's where we become passionate about it because
Mm-hmm.
we've seen probably so many films out there, and not just us, but even those of you who are listening, seen a lot of movies like this, and yet you still can come to a consensus as to which are the better films and which are the lesser films. And at
Mm-hmm.
some point, you'll come across some artists more often. So if I'm looking at my five gentlemen here, my opinion is still going to always be, and I guess I'm very biased in this thinking, but it's always going to be Bruce Lee. Um, talking about someone who has been able to give you um, emotion, give you uh, what feels like, as you alluded to, but feels like a truest self in the film. And we got to also understand, taking consideration, they're acting too now,
Mhm.
but to be so convincing and to get your whole attention, his acting prowess was good on its own without the martial arts,
Mhm.
and the martial arts just was an extension of that. Now, I'm not going to say I didn't get excited over the different moves that Bruce Lee has. You'd be crazy not to. But at the
Mhm.
same time, it wasn't unbelievable. It wasn't over the top. I mean, he didn't fly 20 gazillions. Well, in this movie, he kind of did one time, but like backwards into the tree. But other than that, I think that's more the fabulistic element of the mystery behind the arts kind of movement. But a lot of the movements and what you see looks so real. It looks so much like this is truly masterful martial artist. And the cool thing about it in Enter the Dragon is he didn't get out of there unscathed. So
Mhm.
he got tired at one time, he got hurt a few times, he got cut a few times. So that helped the realism. But his innate ability to I don't know, it's just amazing, this guy. Bruce Lee was just, I mean, he was awesome as Lee. And then in this character in this film, as Lee, he's going to avenge his sister's death. Um, something that you didn't know was eating inside him. You didn't know that this was something that he needed to do. And yet you find out later when he gets that opportunity and he knows where he's going. At first he's thinking, I'm not going to do this. But when he realizes what's going to happen, he's all in. He's going to do something, find some way to avenge his sister's death at the hands of whoever on this island. And when he gets there, he's very calm, cool, and collected, very seamless, like using one of your words, seamlessly intermingling, quiet but alert, focused. And then when he finally gets his match, he's just sitting there waiting for the matches because it's at a tournament. And he's just sitting at the match, and the guy says, "Mr. Lee, you're up." And he's like, "Okay." And then when he says, "You have O'Hara," his eyes change like, "That's him. That's the guy." He doesn't say it, but you know that's what he's thinking. And so now
Mhm.
he's going into this thing thinking, "Okay, here's my opportunity. Here's my chance, and I'm going to be as focused as I can be," because he does not know O'Hara's capability. But once he gets in that situation and realizes he's smarter, quicker, faster, he knows he's got it. And he does something very selfless at the fact that he's just beating the crap out of this guy. He tries to end it. He already won. He had already won. So instead of doing anything overbearing, he just decided, I've done it. Probably wasn't as fruitful as he wanted it to be, but he's gonna walk away. And then the guy breaks the bottles. Don't do that to Bruce Lee. I mean, Mr.
Mm.
Lee, because Mr. Lee's thinking, okay, now I have carte blanche to get this done because you're trying to kill me now with broken bottles. And he just wears them out. But who didn't he wear out in this film? Mr. Lee he's just the man. He can be a spy. He can be he's everything in this movie. He's kind of like Flint or Matt Helm. I'm using all the old people terms now.
Mhm.
And James Bond all in one, and all to get an opportunity, just a small semblance of an opportunity to get back at those who wronged his family. Um, yeah, Bruce Lee is the man. I compared to all these other guys who I think are wonderful, he's the man. Now, I'll let you guys in on a secret. With all the different people that I have a new guy who I'm just really excited about. But let's get on with this. So, name another person that you liked, Steve. That's it's one of your caliber guys over there.
Um, the movie, like Michael Jai White playing the character Bone is like the big, the seamless guy, the most impressive when it comes to the actual act of one-on-one combat. But the guy that impresses me the most, and he's been in two movies that I've seen so far, both of them, one being The Raid, two being The Raid Redemption 2. Ego plays a police officer, and he's not, a high up police officer. This is there. He's still going through training. He's still the young guy. He's not fully, you know, trusted and believed to be able to, get the job done. But he does work for the special task force that his name is Rama, and he practices a martial art called Salat. And Salat is really extremely focused on using elbows and knees and using strong shots, but pinpointed very, very perfectly, like karate and tai chi and different martial arts like that. But being focused on knees and elbows, you're delivering heavier strikes than you normally would, with while leaving your hands, wrists, your legs able to block and defend yourself, and it can able to move your body in ways that seem a little weird and out of place, but you're able to defend yourself very thoroughly. Well, he works with this special unit. They're going into this apartment complex in the city that they work in, and what it is this apartment complex is basically run by a drug dealer slash mob boss, and they go in and they're going in working their way up floor to floor, arresting, subduing any criminals working there, trying to work their way to the top to the big boss man. Well, the problem is they get snitched. There's a kid that they try to stop and subdue. He ends up running out and triggering the alarm, which lets everybody know that the cops are there. Now this building is almost 40, 50 floors. They're on floor 8 when this starts. Now they've got 42, floors to go to get to the top, and every single person in this building that has a problem with cops is now breathing down their neck all the way down. And as you see members of the squad getting taken out and picked apart, you see Rama slowly start to train, starts to really come into play and helping him out, and he's able to his thinking and his mind frame and his understanding that he needs to survive because he has a wife at home with a baby on the way, which you see at the very beginning of it, and he's trying to be a good father, conducting his job as a police officer. Pretty bad guy, and at one point, at one point, hallway, and he comes out after getting one of his officers' help, and there's guys in this hallway with machetes, big weapon, cutting vines in the jungle, machetes, and he has to subdue 7 people way in hand-to-hand combat with a machete, and all of them have machetes. And the focus and the understanding and the threshold for pain that he has to cause, and he as he's working his way up, he's getting injured, he's getting beaten on, he's getting you know he's getting it taken
Right, right.
taken to him, and he clears hallways full of, so his Salat usage is able to um, really focus on not just one-on-one combat, but multiple persons combat, and 1-on-5, 1-on-10, and it's very impressive to see his face. There's a level of acting where you see in that situation would really be what could be capable of, and you becomes believable, and the motions that he make to the power that he uses behind some of these shots, and it's known behind the scene that he kind of hurt a couple people.
Hmm. I mean, sometimes it's
And, if you don't,
unavoidable.
right, but it shows that these aren't just, small shots, these flying. His ability to kind of clear rooms. The final fight in this movie, which is 2-on-1 fight, in which the roles are reversed, in which he has a partner with him, and they're fighting somebody else. And to see him of this guy who's literally taking on two different people and winning,
Right.
you see his focus, understanding, and his ability to coordinate with another person to put the situation out. It's really interesting, and they do a really good job with this movie, and you care about this guy. As
Hmm.
you're going, you kind of you he really embodies the hero. So that my even though Michael Jai White's my favorite on this list, I love his movies, and I love the two movies that I've seen, and I love what he touches.
Yep.
Really gets into it.
Well, let me go ahead and do a comparison that is actually a comparison, not mine directly, but one that I hear a lot about. And they've even made an animated feature, not feature, but animated short, utilizing this guy. Bruce Lee is my favorite. He'll always be my favorite, I think. Even in comparison to other martial artists that I've seen, I still think um, Bruce Lee in as Lee in Enter the Dragon is just a very special film. Especially when you're talking about him in the dungeon area, and he's trying to make his way out, and he has to come against all these different factions of guards, and those are special moments in Enter the Dragon. But another martial artist who a lot of people compare to Bruce Lee is Danny Yen. Now, Danny Yen has been in a lot of films. Excuse me. He's also been in the film, actually, of one of my other characters in down the road here in Blade. He's actually was in Blade also, Blade 2. But his most memorable performance to me and his most memorable character to me is Ip Man. And Ip Man is um, this is pre World War II China. And Ip Man lives very comfortably. He's kind of upper to middle class. He's respected in his community. And one of the things that he does well is martial arts. And he is in a time where martial arts schools were very big and important in the town area that he lives. And if you're a part of a good school and get good training, you'll get very prosperous and helps your development. Because again, in this day and time, martial arts is a way to better health, but it's also a way to have bragging rights. And so Ip Man is the reluctant instructor because of his family, but at the same time, people continue to challenge him. In this film, we see the study of a martial arts that is considered to be, and they even say it in the film, an art for females.
Mm-hmm.
Well, Ip Man is saying, well, it doesn't matter where the art comes from. It's not the art itself as much as it is the practitioner. And in this movie, we see that he is well versed in the art. And his ability in this movie, his acting prowess, the character himself, Ip Man is the seemingly one of the nicest people, but he's also the most focused person in the whole film. And this situation in his town goes from um, the challenges between the schools and challenges with him to Japan coming and taking over China just before World War II. And when they are taking over China, they are considered the weaker of the Asian countries, and Japan is the stronger and the more vibrant. And the uh, essence of China now is as a conquest. They look at it as a conquest before they try to conquering other Asian lands before what we know as World War II, just before Pearl Harbor. But you see the life of this man going from this wonderful moments to these horrific moments, and how he handles that and how he handles it with pride. You love the character because he is every man in his heart, and he tries to right wrongs, and he where he sees negative, he tries to make a positive. And even when his life is threatened, he thinks about his life, he thinks about his family and what he needs to do. And he never backs away from anything. He's a very proud man, a quiet man, a resourceful man, and one of the best martial artists I've seen. And this is one of the best martial arts films I've seen. It Man. The first two movies, because they've made four, the first two movies are really pretty good. It gets a little hokier after that, but what's the cool thing about this movie is you find out at the end who this person was, because this is not just a character in a film. This is a depiction of someone who really existed in the world. And I'm not going to try to spoil the ending if you haven't seen this film, It Man. But this character, this person, this real life person, the things that he went through, it's just amazing. And his being able to survive all these different elements is just truly amazing. But Donnie Yen, as the actual actor, he does a very good job acting, but he does even a more impressive job with his skill and ability um, to utilize this martial art to show us that how seamless, again, that word's going to keep propping up, he is in his delivery of this character, Ip Man, this true to life figure. Good stuff.
Mm-hmm. Oh, it's so good. And just believing that there could be, and it's that it wasn't like this movie didn't have, or the movies didn't have a lot of information to go on. This is a guy who is culturally a historic figure in
Right.
China and in martial arts in general. And there's martial arts that are used in actors today, from Bruce Lee, Jet Li, Jackie Chan in part of his training, and others like them that trace their learning of martial arts, the reason they got into martial arts, the reason to Ip Man and
Yeah.
the wushu style.
Wushu. Yep. Wushu style. Considered a quote unquote feminine art,
Mm-hmm.
is one of the more respected arts out there too. So many different wushu practitioners in the world. I mean, millions.
Mm-hmm.
So yeah, wushu. Yep, that's the deal, and very well illustrated by Ip Man in his whole life, and of course Donnie Yen as Ip Man in the film.
Mm-hmm.
Oh goodness, I am so sorry, everybody. So why don't you go ahead, Steve? What's your next person?
I'm actually gonna go ahead and talk about Bone. I've talked a little bit about why I like Michael Jai White's character Bone in Blood and Bone, but I really want to delve into there's a couple fights that he does that are early on to really show you how methodical this character is. And he's not a small guy by any means. He's got an imposing figure about him. And people he wears kind of a baggy shirt, he wears kind of baggy pants, he wears boots while he's on, so everything appears, you know, not quite what he really looks like. There's a couple fights, especially at the very beginning of the movie, where he's in prison. He is in prison, and some guys tried to jump him in the bathroom, and basically these bad men get put down real quick, and one of them ends up getting stabbed with their own shank when Bone defends himself. And he tells the guy when he's done, he was like, if any of you people, if anybody else thinks about messing with me, don't. And then he knocks the guy out. And that's like the start of the movie and when you get rolling. Um the first two fights the first two underground fights, which is kind of the premise of where the movie starts out, that you see is him fighting a guy who's got a little power in his kicks, and that's kind of one of the things that he focuses on. And then another guy who's, kind of a boxer, a 1-2, striker. And Bone, seeing that and watching him practice before the fight, picks up on, hey, that's something I could get him to do. So what he does is he leaves his left side completely open. So the guy sits there and instinctively goes, he's left it open. He's not ready for this. I'm about to break his ribs. And when he gets ready and to go for the kick and he's putting everything into it, Jai White hits him once in the face, then jumps up and hits him a second time in the face. Done. Ends the fight. 2 shots. The next fight we see is the 1-2 puncher guy. They go to this one, kind of parking lot brawl. When you first get there, there's 2 girls that are having a street fight, and one girl ends up messing the other one up pretty bad. And there's a lot of humor back and forth. And even though Bone is a serious character, the things that he says come off in a sarcastic, funny way. So as serious and as menacing as he is, there's a lightheartedness to him as you're watching this, in which you really start to feel that toward the end of the movie. But the guy does his little 1-2 punch, his little moving around, is getting ready for the fight. They get everything set up. The guy goes for the 1-2 punch, one elbow across the face. Jai White knocks him completely out. Done. And then the Mexican guy that runs the whole thing is like, whoa, 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 you said this guy just started. Well, yeah, this is only his second fight. Like, he doesn't know any better. He's getting lucky. It's all luck. And the guy who's setting up these fights for Bone ends up talking him into a double or nothing.
Mm-hmm.
So 2 guys attack Bone, and he takes them out so smooth, quick, effortlessly. Then it's triple or nothing. 1, 2, 3. 3 guys come after him, and it's he just bam one, tosses him to the side, takes out the other one, comes back, bam, kicks that one. All right, you want to go try for 4-1 odds? Is that what you want to do? Sure enough, he sends all of his guys after him, and he takes out one, and he takes out the other, and then he takes out another one, and then he takes out 2, and then he jumps up and does the most, it's the coolest thing that I've ever seen, where he jumps up in between 4 people and kicks all 4 of them in the face. It's insane. He kicked all 4 of them in the face. Some of the fights that he does, he'll actually move around them and use techniques to block, because he's so aware of what they're doing, what they're trying to do, what other people, manipulating them into what he's trying to get them to do, so he has an easier time, that he'll block with the back of his elbow behind him when he's in a rotation, or he'll kick their legs out from under him, but he's on the side of them and is kicking out the far leg on the other side. And it's just the way he does it. It's his manipulation is very good, and you see he's very proficient in Tai Chi, Brazilian Jiu Jitsu, karate. He submits a couple people and submits them by them trying to get out of it. He gets them into tighter other submissions as he's going. So it's just impressive to see the choreography and the motions and the movements of how every fight that he takes leads up to a bigger and bigger and bigger fight, to a bigger and stronger and more dominant opponent, and at no given point in time do they not seem easy. Do they
Hmm.
not seem like he seems like he's going through the motions with all of these characters, and it's very impressive to see it. As a matter of fact, one of the fights in it is Big Bob Sapp. Bob Sapp was an NFL player. Bob Sapp was a very professional or lucrative professional wrestler in Japan. And if anybody knows anything, professional wrestling in Japan is not like professional wrestling here.
Right.
Okay,
Right.
when they hit each other, these are stiff shots that are coming, and they got some stank on them. And Sapp was a champion there, and had a lot of accreditation. And Sapp was also a mixed martial arts fighter, and he didn't have a great record, but he won fights.
Hmm.
So
Hmm.
Bob Sapp's huge. Bob Sapp's like 6'7". So to see White move around Sapp, and it being a guy which we all know, Sapp's been in movies and he always plays kind of the big goofy guy that's ready to beat anybody up at a drop of a hat. But he's also a guy that looks good while he's doing it. So
Hmm.
it makes it just a little bit more impressive that way. So like
So,
he's kind of my biggest one that I really just love watching.
I'm a fan too. I think, as you alluded to before, his physical prowess is just amazing. He does not look anything near his age. And he's been in a lot of films over time. And I've watched him over the years, and I'm so impressed with his ability and his stature. And the fact that he is in such great shape, even still to this day, is amazing. And his movements are, as you said before, very uh, elusive
Mm-hmm.
and in nature. And so, yeah, he's pretty impressive. I'll give you that, Steve. He's pretty impressive. Um, so another guy who I found pretty impressive, who's actually a very good actor, um, impressed me in a movie that they made a trilogy. This is a Marvel movie, and this movie is Blade, starring Wesley Snipes, and the lead character is Blade. So they decided in this film, you have a guy who's got this great ability, but part of his ability is enhanced because this movie is not just a thriller. This is um, a horror thriller technically because we're dealing with vampires in this movie. And Blade is a vampire hunter, and they call Blade the Daywalker because he's part vampire, part human, and so he can walk in the daytime. Now he has his difficulties, and he has to take a serum in order for this to actually work, but it keeps him from the bloodlust, and he's able to uh, disseminate and get rid of, eliminate a lot of vampires who are coming into power. And he's trying to break the system so that he can get to the main vampires. And that's so the essence of what this movie's about. But even more so than that is Wesley Snipes' ability and his ability as Blade to wow you with his martial arts prowess. This guy has moves. He's so quick. He's strong. He's another one of those guys who's pretty virile. In fact, he and John White actually share a movie um, character, but not in the same movie. But yeah, Wesley Snipes, especially young, very impressive physical specimen. But his in Blade, I mean, you're talking about somebody from the beginning is doing some amazing things and taking out people amazingly. Jumping over this, doing that. His physical ability as hand-to-hand combat is amazing. And then he shows you that he also is a weapons guy. The guy walks around with a samurai sword in his back pack, and he's pulling it out, and he's drawing a line every time. Like, I dare you to cross it, because you cross it, you're not going to get back across. And he is just totally impressive. Great moves, great ability. He's ferocious in his approach, and he's not afraid of what's out there. And so when you're fearless like that, and you know that you have this ability, fearless, confident, aggressive, assertive, he's all of that, but he has everything to back it up in this film, and so much so that they made three of them. So this guy is like, he's one of the better martial artists out there, and I've seen him in other films where he shows his martial arts ability, but it's not none of those movies surpass what he shows you in Blade 2. Wesley Snipes is the man.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, he is. Yeah, no, I love him in the movie. I think he's the best part of all three movies. Even though you get a little this and that from other characters as they're going along, he's you kind of feel for the guy because of his situation, his circumstance, and he really takes to being, he really takes to the struggle is real for his situation of him having to try and control what's going on, and having to really focus. And he does a good job portraying, how bad it hurts him when it does affect him, that he needs blood or he's in pain or he can't. And it's not like there's not hurdles he can't climb.
Right.
He has to do, but he is, the biggest and the baddest, and he's not afraid to prove it to everyone.
Yeah.
With very, very sarcastic, I don't care what you say, you're not better than me. Undertones.
Yep. and sometimes that's just reassurance,
Mm-hmm.
You've got to go into a den of vampires, and you're kind of a half vampire, which means the other half ain't, which means that's a disadvantage.
Mm-hmm.
So you have to come at them with abilities, gadgets, whatever it takes, and his ability is what helps him get through.
Mm-hmm.
Now that doesn't mean the vampires he goes up against don't have their own abilities, but they're more afraid of him than he is of them.
Mm-hmm.
And that's important for him in order for him to continue his work to try to rid the world of these creatures.
Yeah,
so yeah, he's definitely balls to the wall. This guy is tough. I think Bruce Lee was more of a calm fury. Donnie Yen as Ip Man was more of a passive fury.
Mm-hmm.
And this guy is all out, assertive, aggressive, just a ball of fury, this guy. And all of those seem to work, and this works for him because he has to be that way because of what he's up against.
That's true.
Yeah.
That is true.
But as a martial artist in film, Blade is the man. He's formidable for sure.
Yeah. He's cheating.
Huh?
I said he's cheating.
Yeah, a little bit. Got to. You're going against vampires. You're not going against regular people. That's easy. These guys, not so much. Need a gadget or two. But pretty much, I think he just needs him and that sword. That's it.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, he's cunning and ferocious. That's
Yeah,
perfect.
that's not a joke. That is definitely him.
Yeah, that's perfect description of him. Cunning and ferocious. So who else you got, Steve?
So the next one I'm going to talk about is when Americans think of martial arts. There's really two names that come up instantly, right off the top. One of them is Bruce Lee. Of course, your favorite, my favorite. He was the man.
Yep.
The next one everybody thinks of is Jean-Claude Van Damme. And it's Jean. When you think of martial arts movies, you think of Jean-Claude Van Damme.
You do.
And even though he's one of those guys that he has found his niche, and this is what he does, and he's taken to there's two movies that have come out here recently based on two of his movies, and they're the Kickboxer
Hmm.
movies that he did, in which he's a teacher in these movies, and I like the fact that they've gone that direction, where they've made him
Okay.
more of a teaching person, because he's getting on up there.
Yeah.
Yeah, he might not be able to do some of the stunts that he used to, but I want to talk about what, in my opinion, is the best movie that he's done.
Hmm.
And it might not be over the top when it comes to acting, and but it is over the top in the martial arts. It is awesome in the presence of every character in the film,
Hmm.
and how they do a good job portraying their roles, and looking looking like they're supposed to, being like they're my favorite one is Bolo Young, who plays Chong Li in this movie, in which he is a martial artist, a bodybuilder. He's a teacher now, and as well as an actor, and he's been impressive in for the fact that he's been in so many movies, and he's always portrayed this martial arts guy, and he looks like a villain. He looks like the guy, and the who should be the bad guy,
Yeah.
and he's coming into this movie playing Chong Li, who is the defending Kumite champion. Which the Kumite, the movie I'm talking about is Bloodsport, and what it is Frank Dukes is a U.S. United States Army captain, and he's going to go participate for his sensei, a guy who trained him from his youth and was kind of like a father figure to him. He trained him in what's called Kogo Yambishu Ninjutsu. It's a lot of kicks, a lot of like open palm strikes, elbows, and things of that nature in kind of a defensive manner. They can be used for attack, in which in a lot of this he uses it for attack. But you can see where there's small movements where he does the martial art, but there's always there's that close quarter military training that that he's also had to be privy to. Um, when there's a flashback. He's going to visit his master, and the U.S. Army doesn't want him anywhere near this kumite. Doesn't want him anywhere near this fight, which is taking place in Hong Kong. Halfway around the world, because they've invested a lot of money in him. He's a U.S. Army captain that they send in to get jobs done when jobs they don't feel like jobs can get done by anybody else. And so they're trying to they send somebody after him. He ends up escaping the U.S. Army base. He goes AWOL, and he returns to his sensei's house, and you see flashbacks of him when he was a kid and him getting into trouble by coming in and trying to steal, or being a part of a group of people that are trying to steal the katana out of Senzo Tanaka, which is and his family's house, which is the sensei, and he ends up uh, taking him on. Tanaka ends up taking him on in order to help train his son.
Before we go any
His
further, Steve,
yeah,
can you explain to our listeners who aren't familiar with this weapon what a katana is?
a katana is a blade from feudal Japan, which was used mostly by samurai. It's a very proficient blade. It's been folded. I believe the trick is the steel has to be folded 10,000 times. At one point in time, just to give an element of how sharp this weapon is, there was one found in um, somewhere outside of Tokyo. They had end up there was they were building a new parking lot. Well, they had to dig up the whole parking lot. Well, they ended up digging far enough down to get all the groundwork and everything for the underground parking and everything up, that they ended up uncovering some historical, things. Well, they ended up finding in a sheath a katana that had they I do not know who was the maker of it, but they all come with a certain symbols and kanji in order to let you know what the maker was.
Right.
They had used gloves, which are kind of like chainmail gloves, which are chainmail is what knights used to wear in England in
Like
order to
the
help protect themselves under their armor.
during the Crusades.
Yeah, during the Crusades, and
Yep.
they were using these gloves, and they pulled the knife, the katana, the blade out of its sheath, and they were holding it blade down, and it through just have holding it there through the gloves, it was cutting the man's hand. This is the katanas are blades that are also passed down. They're very ceremonial, and a lot of times they would be passed down through families, from masters to senseis to trainees. Whenever they would pass down the art or the style or whatever belief they had, even certain businesses in feudal Japan were handed down with weapons in order to protect said business. So
So is this the long sword or the short sword?
the katana is the long sword.
Just asking you to explain.
Katana is the long sword. I believe the Nodachi is the short sword. Then
Hey,
generally they are paired together, and samurai always wear two swords. If one they happen to lose one in battle, they have the other one. So,
just
and,
just just a little history, a little something to give our listeners who are not necessarily proficient
mm-hmm.
in that kind of thing. So, all right, sorry
His,
about that.
and now the History Channel with Greg and Steve. But
Feudalistic weapons. Okay,
I mean, it fits the time. We're talking about martial arts, and we're going to feudal Japan, which,
that's it.
I mean, is the where karate and multiple other arts started.
Yep.
So, basically, the katana is also a family heirloom in the Tanaka household. Uh, ends up the Tanaka's son dies, which Frank had become real close with. Frank convinces the father to continue to train him and get him ready for the Kumite. And so he trains him, and Frank finally has this opportunity. So he travels to Hong Kong. During the movie, he's running away from two CID criminal investigation command officers. One of them being our very famous Forrest Whitaker, portraying one of the officers. Um, and the Kumite is fighters from all over the world that are brought together to compete in this tournament to see who's the best.
Right.
And you have to get an invitation. And generally, invitations are handed out either through families that pass down their style and their art, or you have to be a really, really bad man.
Right.
And in order to get in, well, Frank, because he's not really a Tanaka, even though he is representing the Tanaka clan, has to give a test. And this is where you see the first real feat of how impressive he is. You've seen the training montage, you've seen the working, you've seen the the very beginning of the movie and other stuff. But they tell him, all right, show us the death touch. And he's like, all right, I'm going to do it. And they point to stacks of bricks. He tells his guy that's supposed to be showing him around, his chauffeur, all right, pick a brick. So the guy picks the one at the very top in the center. And right as he's about to break it, one of the judges turns and goes, no, the bottom one. So there's 7 bricks here. They're telling him using this technique to break the bottom brick in order to show that he is who he says he is. Well, not only does he break the bottom brick, he doesn't break any of the bricks all the way to the bottom brick, and the bottom brick just explodes out of the way.
Yep, that's the test.
Yep, that's the test, and he proved himself. The fights are very good. You see him not have any struggle till it starts getting in the later rounds, and then you know, um, you see him start to struggle with real, true competition.
Mm-hmm.
And even at one point, he's blinded, and he uses his training and his focus and his meditation and everything he's been caught to overcome blindness to be able to win his fight. And it's very impressive to watch him do that, and sensing and the understanding of where his opponent is, which a lot
Mhm.
of martial arts try to teach, of understanding, observing your surrounding, getting a full perception of everything going on. That way, you're not attacked from behind. You're not jumped in an alleyway. Somebody's not hiding behind a car and you don't know it. And
Yeah.
so,
Just to
so it,
interject something, if I could,
yeah.
The Last Samurai is a very good
Mm-hmm.
um, example of that when Tom Cruise is walking in the square and there's different people around him, and it shows it almost like in a slow motion sequence. And he sees what's going on. He observes and
Mm-hmm.
he encapsulates all that is around him, and so that helps his movement
Mm-hmm.
and so like that in this movie in Bloodsport. So too is the same thing with Frank. He's
Mm-hmm.
he's he's enveloping all that's around him so he can make better choices in his movement.
And the other amazing part of this movie, and what really helps Frank get the motivation to finish and to finish what he started, is a guy he meets, another American named Donald Gibb, which is played by Ray Jackson. Ray Jackson has been in a plethora of movies, and he's an American comedic relief to the style. He kind of looks like a biker guy. He's got no shirt on, but he's got the big hairy chest, and he wears a Harley Davidson bandana. Really what back then, especially in the '80s, what certain people would probably think of Americans.
Right, right.
And he's a beer guzzler, and he talks to women, you know, in
The
an
gaudy American.
in an unbecoming way.
Yeah.
And he's a welcome part of the movie. His bonding with Frank's character is awesome, and he really gives him the motivation to finish what he started. And it's a good movie. It's a good martial arts movie. It's a movie where we see martial arts today. We see long, drawn out martial arts scenes. These aren't long. The fights in this movie, until you get to specific ones, aren't long and drawn out. They're quick. They're fast, which are the way fights normally are. Normal fighting is fast. It is not. You're not fighting for 15, 20 minutes over a period of time. Fights are 30 seconds. Um, when in real life. So it's good to see a movie that's, even though with choreography and with everything else, they do a good job of portraying that you know these things can end in an instant, and it's not like they go on forever. So I
Right.
really enjoy the movie.
It's a good movie. It's probably one of my earlier movies that I saw as well. Um, Now this is post Enter the Dragon, but at the same time, in the midst of all the crazy movies out there, where like, excuse me, people are flying from one mountain to another mountain.
Mm-hmm.
This was one of those ones where they didn't fly anywhere; they stayed within the essence of that arena, and you're actually seeing some really good ability in all these different people that are competing in this kumite.
Mm-hmm.
So yeah, that's a good movie. It is a good movie. It is one of my favorites, also, going back in time. So the next guys I have coming up, um, I didn't see them on the big screen. I saw them on the small screen. And the two series that I've seen, my next two entries here, are Into the Badlands with Daniel Wu and Marco Polo with Tom Wu. Now, I do not know if they're related. I kind of doubt it, but it's just interesting that they're both last name is Wu. But they are very different martial artists, but at the same time, ridiculously entertaining. So the next person I want to talk about is Danny Wu in Into the Badlands, and the character is Sunny. And the irony of the name is, I'm sure, very purposeful. He is anything but sunny in his demeanor. Um, he's very focused, and this is one of those post-apocalyptic kind of eras where there are motorcycles and cars, but they're few and far between. And these areas are segmented by what called barons, barons who own certain areas or run certain areas or claim certain areas, and the people that protect those barons. And so Sonny is one of those guys that protects the baron, and but he also goes out and do special assignments that the baron sends him to do. So in this case, what got me drawn to this TV series was, and again, the name of it's Into the Badlands, was the first major scene in the toward the beginning of the first episode.
Mm-hmm.
All you have to do is watch that, and you're hooked. I mean, just hooked. Now, I did want to talk about a little backstory to this in just a moment, but so Sonny is looking, over the Baron's duties that he has him do, and one of them is a transport where they have these people who are taken into as hostages to work the fields and all that. Well, he gets to the transport, and everybody's dead, including a very young lady, child, really, and everyone's throat's been cut. But he noticed at the end of the shackle line of all the different shackles, there's one set of shackles that are opened. So that means someone's been taken. So now he's trying to figure out why they took one and killed everybody else. What was the importance of that one? So he finally sees in the distance smoke. So obviously they have a campfire. Excuse me for one moment. Again, my apologies, ladies and gentlemen. So, as I was speaking, there was a campfire in the distance. So he rides on his motorcycle up there, and he has a samurai sword attached to his back. He rides up there, and he sees a group of people there, and one guy sitting on this really really large box, like a chest. And so he's saying, he's asking them, did they know anything about what happened to this transport? And at first they're kind of smug and they'll say, well, no, we really don't know anything about it. He said, so what's in the box? And they're like, none of your business. You ask a lot of questions kind of thing, and all of a sudden it gets a little, the timbre of the conversation turns. Sonny has already just laid his samurai sword against his motorcycle. So he's standing there without any weapons. Oh, we forgot, he's a weapon. So they send some guy out there to try to take on Sonny, and he quickly eliminates that guy. And so they send a couple more guys. He quickly eliminates those guys. And then he sends another set of guys. He quickly eliminates those guys. And so far, the big campfire with all the many people is starting to get smaller and smaller and smaller and smaller. But the thing about it is, his ability is so effortless. Again, you can see this guy is a masterful martial artist, and he is just dealing with these guys. And after almost every single one of them is dead, not just beat up, he's killing them. The last guy, who's I guess the most impressive guy, who's sitting on the box, he finally gets into the fray. And for a few moments, there's a good back and forth for a few moments, but it is short lived. And when I say short lived, the guy doesn't live. So yeah, it was short. So this guy, Sonny, has done his baron well by eliminating those who killed all the workers, but also too, he's retrieved this box. And that is the beginning of what goes on for the rest of the story. You find in watching the different series episodes how truly versed Sonny is, not just in hand-to-hand combat, but also in weapons. This guy is a samurai sword teacher's dream. This guy is amazing. And so that makes me go to the backstory real quickly. I'll be brief. So the producers of this TV series had a lot of people picked out to be in guest stars and guest appearances and the cast, but they just were having a hard time getting the main character, Sonny's character. And so they went all different places and cattle calls, direction calls, whatever. auditions, and they just couldn't find the guy. And the executive producer's like, man, we're just having a hard time finding this guy. And so some of the other producers are like, well, dude, and they're like, Dan. He's like, what? He said, why don't you do it? And he said, excuse me? He said, Dan, you're a martial artist. You're good. Why don't you do it? I mean, you're an actor. You do it. He's like, but I'm the producer. He says, that doesn't mean you can't act in it. He said, yeah, but I wanted my to direct. He said, dude, we can't find anybody. And let's be honest, this is perfect for you. So after a lot of cajoling, they finally convinced him to do this. And I'm so glad they did because this guy is phenomenal. And they're looking for somebody. He was right there all the time. He is the perfect guy for this role. He is Sonny. And not just the martial arts chops. This dude can act. He's very convincing. He's going through it. Like I said, Sonny's just a name because he is not Sonny at all. And he's not Sunny like SON. He's SUN like bright sunny day. It's like that's like they did like they're being sarcastic because he ain't Sunny at all. So this is a really good role. This is a really good character. You like him because he is so tough and resilient, but you also like him because he is a sad person. You like the fact that he's doing what he can to try to feel better, but even in that, he's sad because there's something that's edging him on, something that hasn't been presented to him that he doesn't have a grasp of yet. But once he retrieves that box, things start to change, and he how he does things starts to change, and that's for the rest of his life in this situation. Sonny is changing, and his Baron doesn't like the changes that are being made.
Mm-hmm.
So he tries to bring him back into the fold even more so when he sees these changes taking place. So this is a really good series. It's called Into the Badlands, and the character is Sonny, played by Daniel Wu. Good stuff.
The really thing that I hugely enjoy about this is he's very focused,
Oh,
and
to a fault.
there's an intensity about him every step of the way.
Yep, to a
Even
fault.
even when he's having moments where he's being soft and where he's trying to relax and he's trying to calm down, he can't do it. It's beyond him to be able to be that guy.
Can you
So it's
can you see through there?
barely.
Yep, that's his moments of glee.
Hmm. And honestly, they're cut very short, very quickly all the time. And it's good to see a person with such intensity
Yeah, and be so good.
and be so good
Um,
and be and even his words that are, and this is a credit to his acting, even when he's trying to be gentle with his words, he can't.
can't do it.
They do not come across gentle. They do not come across nice.
And
So,
every Baron wants him on their
mhm,
side because he's that tough.
he's the best.
He's the best. And there's another part where there's a ceremonial part where they're showing all the quote unquote new recruits. Um, Sonny, because it's how many kills you have that make you the star in the Baron's eyes. And they put those notches on your skin. And when they take Sonny's clothes off, everyone's almost like you can't really see a whole bunch of places where there aren't any notches. that's
Mm-hmm.
that's spooky. That's scary, and that's Sonny.
Mm-hmm.
Oh yeah, he's the man,
He's a bad
and
man.
he's he's not to the he knows he's good, but he's not to the point where he's zealous about it.
Mm-hmm.
He's focused. His whole thing is about what the Baron's business is and what his intent is. So whatever that is, he focuses from the beginning. Like as soon as the Baron said, "I want you to do this," he's already focused. That's this guy. He's intense, but good. This is the guy you want to be your bodyguard.
Mm-hmm.
Oh yeah, yep. So who's another person that you've got,
Nice.
Steve?
Okay. Again, where we run into the guys with one name, and it's just guys with one name are bad men. They just all are.
Typically.
And the movie, the actor's name is Tony Jaa, who's been in quite a few movies and has done a lot work in doing arts when doing movies other than martial arts movies. I felt like he did a good job with this character, even though he's mostly a martial arts guy in it. Um, and the Fast and the Furious movie he was in. You okay? Okay. I thought he did a really good job in that movie, and uh, his name is Tony Jaa. The movie that everybody needs to see, and honestly, they need to see all three of the movies. All three of the movies are it's the On Bak series, and this one's On Bak, the Muay Thai warrior, which is the fighting style he's most comfortable with. Though he does, tend to drift into other styles. He's is trained in Salat and a couple others, but he plays the character named Ting, and he lives in a rural village in Thailand, where they worship a Buddha statue. That's an ancient statue named Om Bak. Well, the village falls after thieves come and then they take the statue. And the warrior for the village, trained in Muay Thai, decides where they think the thieves went with the head of On Bak. So he's gonna a drug dealer who attempted to buy the statue through information he's found earlier that day. So he arrives in Bangkok with a bag full of money to meet these people, and he ends up meeting his cousin, who has embraced the life of Bangkok. He's blonde hair. He's dyed his hair blonde. He doesn't go by his real name. He goes by George, and he works with some street bike racing hustlers, and he's rather unscrupulous people.
Mm-hmm.
And his cousin ends up stealing Ting's money. He ends up stealing it because he's such a, he's enveloped in the lifestyle, and then he bets all of it in the underground fighting tournament at a bar, and he does. So you can imagine when Ting gets there, Ting is furious that he's doing this and he's not helping his village. And he's, well, Joe would be called, tries to um, get something going to where he could get the money back. Well, somebody ends up attacking them, and with one knee strike, Ting takes him out. And it's kind of this weird curved knee strike where your opponent swings at you with a fist and you dip under it and then bring your knee up to their face. It's very, very interesting, with the flexibility involved and the movement quickness to be able to use it.
Right.
And then basically, hey, well, you're going to have to fight everybody in this. So he ends up taking about two or three other people that are trained in different, styles. But then he gets to this one guy who's uh, who's just a brawler. That's all
Mm-hmm.
he is. He's crazy. He uses beer bottles and refrigerators and tables and chairs and everything, trying to beat on Bach. Bach actually, through a refrigerator, knocks him through a wall. The guy's literally trying to block with a refrigerator. And Ting says, no, no, no. That is not a thing.
That's not a thing.
Um,
Yep.
it, it slowly, it slowly just leads from there, and Ting beats all the opponents, and they end up giving chase to these people that have stolen the head, and they're trying to find it, and all of a sudden they're attacked by people with guns, and he's got to do these crazy, amazing to get out of these situations, which is he reminds me so much in these movies of a Jackie Chan
Hmm.
and
Because of
doing,
his acrobatic
you know,
ability as
I'm
well.
I'm gonna do my own
Yep.
stunts, but we have people, yeah, but we have people to do that.
Right.
Yeah, but they're not gonna do it as good as I do.
Right.
It's not gonna look real if I don't do it. Now, granted, I've seen a couple of his movies. I haven't seen all of them. I have not seen this man jump from a building to another building, landing on the stairs, the metal stairs on the side of the building.
Right.
I've
Right.
not seen this man try to jump off of a pier and land on a hover boat that's gliding across the water and tear his ankle in six
Right.
places and then continue to shoot the movie. I haven't seen that from him yet, but you, in order to make more fluid and more fluid and better, it's consistent shooting. There's not really a lot of breakups. This fight scenes are, which
Right. You're
makes
real
everything
fast.
just look better, and it makes him more impressive because, well, at one point he ends up beating up a guy with his knees while his pants are on fire.
Wow. Yeah.
Yeah, yeah. This man is so determined to get the head of his Buddha statue back. He beats up a guy with flaming knees. I mean, that's some Street Fighter if I've ever heard it.
Now, ironically, your guy segues into my guy.
Oh, well, that's amazing. But no, it's just to see him acting, and in all three movies where it's still Tony Jaa, but it's taking different timelines and different ventures, and it's seeing him as a character grow. But the martial art that he uses, the Muay Thai style of, which is, it's knees and elbows like Salat, but it's violent like kickboxing and boxing
Yeah, it's just some Muay Thai
styles
style.
rather than being, yeah. And it's not as like a lot of the other characters on the list are very fluid. He's very brutal in his
Yep.
way, but he's passively brutal. He doesn't want to do this, but he understands that if I'm going to get the head back, I'm going to have to take your head. So there.
There's your options. Not
Yes.
big, not many, but it's all serious. Let's focus.
Yeah.
Give me the head
It's
back
all
or lose
serious.
your head.
I'm gonna, and I'm gonna drive you 6 feet under, or you're gonna give me the thing.
Indeed.
So, and everybody, they give him the thing. They give
now,
him the thing,
now here's
but he
something.
takes the thing in the same instant.
Indeed. Now, what I was alluding to before
Mm-hmm.
was this segues into my guy, who, um, setting the stage. This is feudalist China, and this is during the conquest of Kublai Khan, and this is a
Mm.
TV series called Marco Polo. And Marco Polo is part of Kublai Khan's court, after being left there by his father, to help his father get access to, the Tobacco Road, we'll say, this road in China that has all these great markets and trading and all that good stuff that's not very open to foreigners very often. And so, um, the guy that impresses me in Marco Polo, and which is on Netflix, they did a segment just about this guy, just about this character, um, who they call 100 Eyes. So they give the background story of 100 Eyes, how he ends up in Kublai Khan's court. Excuse me. So Kublai Khan is a Mongol, and it's Mongolians versus the mainland Chinese in trying to conquer all of China. And what's interesting is how they acquire a hundred eyes. Um, Very briefly, a hundred eyes, whose original name I don't remember right now, but he is a monk, and he is entrusted with guarding a particular temple and its scrolls, along with some other monks and some nuns. The interesting thing about them is that they have learned this martial art over this time and are very versed in the martial arts. So the scene opens where a guy comes into where a hundred eyes is meditating. He says, "The Mongols are coming. They're destroying everything in their path. They're coming here to destroy the temple. We must guard the temple. You know that's what our moniker is. That's what we're supposed to do." And so a thousand eyes very calmly and coolly goes, pretty much like, "Yeah, I know. Don't worry, I got it." So he picks himself up. He wraps this chain around his hand, and at the end of the chain is a very sharp prick. And he's like, okay. So he goes outside and he just waits. It's this beautiful temple that has these wonderful statues in front of the temple. And so as the Mongols are coming up the stairway in horses and foot soldiers, they're taking things and they're smashing these statues that had been there for, if not decades, hundreds of years. And here is a hundred eyes. He's standing there looking at what's going on, taking it all in, getting ready for his confrontation. The one thing that the Mongols should never have done was come and destroy part of the temple. See, here's a guy who takes it very seriously that you're coming to destroy artifacts, templates that have been entrusted to his order, because he's not a Shaolin, but he is a monk. And his order has all these secret scrolls also that are entrusted to him and his fellow monks. And to see how this guy moves, I was so impressed with his fluidity and his ability and his accurateness. And it did not seem fake at all. And I sat there in my mind watching this guy thinking, these Mongols need to stop because they're just going to keep dying. He just kept killing. At the end, he's killed 25 Mongols on his own before he gets captured. Now, that's impressive in itself. But what's more impressive is what happens to him next when he goes into the court to in chains to talk to Kublai Khan. This man is afraid of nothing. Kublai Khan even says, after their conversation, which is a heated conversation where I hate to say it, Kublai Khan was losing the conversation because this monk is that dude, and he's monks. So Kublai Khan says, "So I'm going to threaten you with death, and you're not afraid to die?" He said, "I'm not afraid of death." He said, "I don't look at it as in death in that way. I look at it as in inevitability and how I live my life. So you can do all you want about trying to kill me. That's fine. I accept that already. I know that's going to happen. It can happen now, it can happen later. I'm just letting you know that I don't care what you say. I'm not following what you asked me to do."
Mhm.
Pretty much saying, I don't care. And so Kublai Khan's got to figure out, well, if you're not afraid of death, death's not something that I'm going to use because you're not even afraid of death. So I got to do something that's going to mess you up while you live. And that's why he gets his from his Chinese name to this name of 100 eyes, because he tries to figure out what is it that I can do. So he says, "I want you to train my people in this mystic art." And he's like, "No." He said, "You're going to train these people." So he takes them, puts them in a dungeon, And he's in the dungeon. And so one of the generals is in there, and they say, "Well, we've got this guy that's gonna hold you. He's like the strongest guy in the air territory and all this stuff, and we're gonna see if you can get away from this guy. But we're gonna blindfold you too." He's like, "You're gonna blindfold me?" He says, "Well, this is rude," and I can't remember the term he used, but he basically was saying this is rude and absurd, and this is like a coward. And he said, "And I know, I'm telling you that your leader is a pompous punk, saying all these negative stuff." And he's saying, "And I know y'all are all too scared to go and tell him that I said it. That's how I think you all are punks." And so they're like, "Silence," and so they got him blindfolded. This guy takes a hold of him. He's trying to hold him. And so the next scene that you see, you hear on the other side of the dungeon door, there are like 8 or 9 guards. And all you hear is, "Oh, yeah, oh." And then one guard is like, so he opens the door and he kind of walks down the short corridor into the dungeon area. And he looks around, and every single person that was in there, which is about 12 people, including this big bored dude, they're all dead. They're all dead. And then the next scene that you see is a monk running down the road, escaping. This dude is so good and so fluid and so, I mean, this guy is ridiculously impressive. But it was just funny that he had beat up all the people that are in the room. You got to understand, if he could beat up 25, 12 is nothing. You know, it's not even, it's less than half of 25, if you get my drift. So this guy shows his ability and his prowess, not just through his acts, but his verbiage. He is a wordsmith because we got to remember he's a monk, so he's been thinking about things for decades. He's this brilliant guy, and he's got this great ability, and so fluid and so believable, and his strikes are so true. It's just amazing. It is amazing. So if you ever watch Marco Polo, you have to watch episode 10. But before you before you watch any of the episodes at all, um, you must watch the precursor, which is called 100 Eyes. And then you find out why he's called that. I didn't say everything that happened, but you'll find out why he's called 100 Eyes. And he's going to be, I'm going to tell you right now, he's going to be one of your favorite characters in this TV series. I have no doubt. I have no doubt. This guy is impressive. And Steve had mentioned earlier about the armor that was worn during the Crusades, this chained armor. Okay, I think that's episode 14. No, I think that's season 2, episode 3 or something like that. So it's definitely season 2 where a Thousand Eye comes up against a guy like that. And what the outcome is. This guy is the man. I'm just telling you right now. And if he doesn't slay you with his ability physically, he slays you with what he says. The dude has and I'm not saying he's not belligerent at all. He just pretty much knows how to tear you down verbally. He's that guy. And he's not afraid of any Khan, emperor. He's not afraid of nobody. Fear is not his issue. At all. Totally impressive. If on a scale from 100, on a scale from 1 to 10, he's 100. This guy. Okay, I'm sorry. I was ranting too much. Go ahead, Steve. Who's your guy?
My last guy is played by Jason Statham. It's in the movies The Transporters, and this guy is just as good with the car as he's with his fists, and he's Air Force, and it's not completely known, but they believe because it's said, but it's not really hugely mentioned upon that he's Special Air Service, which is a branch of the British Army, which deals in a number of covert reconnaissance, counterterrorism, direct action, hostage rescue. It's basically a highly classified, highly, it's kind of like members of our CIA. These are, people wouldn't consider them the baddest of the bad, maybe, but they are the baddest of the bad that you can't see coming.
Right.
And Frank's kind of enjoying his life away from the military by doing, transportation jobs. It's very harmless. All he does is he drives people around places. He's got 3 rules. 1, don't change the deal. You give your word, you make your terms, whatever it is, don't change it. This is what it is. Rule number 2, no names. Nobody gives any names. Nobody knows who anybody is. Nobody can snitch on anybody.
Right.
It's very, very awesome. Rule number 3, if he's given something to deliver, never open the package. Just deliver it and be done with it. You never open the package. Our entire first movie revolves around him opening the package, breaking his own rule. And this is a guy that's very focused, very determined. He doesn't venture away outside. Very comfortable in what he's doing.
Yep.
But for some reason, he's gotta do it. And what they do is he takes a job. They give him the bag, and ends up there's a person in it. And he contemplates putting her back in the bag and zipping it. As a matter of fact, he does at one point. He unzips it, sees her, and zips it back up. And it's like, oh, what have I done? And now he feels obligated because he's at heart a good person, and through his military training with protecting people and such things, that he feels her. Except he doesn't. He does the best he can. He gives her water. He gives her food. She tries to run away when he attempts to let her go to the bathroom, and he ends up throwing her back in the bag and delivering her. And then they pay him, and they give him what he's asking for. And he ends up stopping, kind of having second thoughts. He decides, you know what? I'm going to stop at a store. I'm going to get some water. I'm going to relax. Not going to think about this. And then they blew up his car. Because he broke one of the rules. You don't break one of the 3 rules. You don't open the package. They blew up his car. So now he has to take it upon himself and go beat up everyone.
Hey.
And what does he do? He goes and beats up everyone.
I mean, the package got delivered.
Yeah, you know what? But you don't open the package.
Yeah, but they didn't really open the package.
Therefore, he got to die.
Yeah.
Actually, they did know he opened the package.
Okay, well.
They know it well.
Him. And it didn't have to try to kill him because you can't say they didn't have to kill him because they didn't. They didn't have to try to kill him.
Guys will be bad guys.
Sometimes you get too greedy.
Sometimes you like the bad guys, sometimes you don't. More on that later. So basically, this is where it all starts. Where you messed with Frank's car, therefore he has to go deal with you. And when Frank shows up to deal with you, people don't walk away from being dealt with.
Nope.
And this is a guy who uses a lot of weaponry. He knows how to because everything becomes a weapon. His shirt is a weapon. His jacket, the chairs are weapons. He uses a bus as a weapon.
He's kind of like a martial arts MacGyver.
So, you know what? He really is a martial. At one point, he actually covers himself in order for people not to be able to grab him, so he can slide through their fingers and just beat the brakes off of them. And he ends up getting on and breaking the pedals off of the bicycle, and they're the pedals up, so you really hook your foot into, and you haven't got to worry about your feet coming out of them. And he uses those as shoes on this oil Charles is slipping and sliding. He's moving around with ease. Is a martial arts MacGyver. You are not kidding. The one I really, really want to talk about is in the Transporter 3. He gets roped into transporting this girl. And he's got to drive her to a specific location, and he has to basically make checkpoints on these locations. And he decides, you know what? You've pulled me into friends. I'm not doing what you say. You've taken this too far. Let's go interact me, and you know, the he ends up having a cuff link on his arm that if he gets too far away from the car, he explodes. So he's really got to. He has an attachment to his cars, but now he's really got to be attached to his cars. And he ends up going to see a guy that he knows to try to figure out how they're tracking him and what's going on. Well, they find out he's off the beaten path. He's not where he's supposed to be. So they send men to go deal back on the road. Needless to say, it doesn't go the way they expected. And the is so impressive is one, like Michael Shaw White and Bone, like Van Damme in sport. he's very he's very
Very smooth.
adaptable. Now, granted, he gets hurt, he gets beat up, he takes his punches just like everybody else, but he knows where to hit. He knows what you to move to hurt you as bad as he can possibly hurt you because special forces training, any kind of special forces training, there's some guys out there that can kill you with a napkin if you're not careful.
That's
And
right.
he, at one point, uses his jacket to tie up one guy and uses that jacket to tie up another guy to that one guy and beat them both up and drop them. And then he uses his button up shirt to tie up one guy and uses him kind of as a shield to kind of block. So he's using a piece of cloth as a weapon in which he is literally tied up and is choking this guy, but is also using a guy as a shield. He can use your own buddies against you.
That's right. He's stud.
And he's very, very aware of his surroundings. He understands everything around him. He's got kind of a sixth sense about what's going on, and he never loses his. He gets frustrated and he gets angry and he gets upset, but he never loses the cool factor. He never loses his cool demeanor. He feels like he's always one step ahead, and that there's no way that he could not get the job done. And he actually, at one point, he beats up all the guys that are in there, and then the curtain area, and he just ingests. This guy is huge compared to him, and he ingests. He goes, "So I guess you're the big one." And the guy replies back, "Yep, I'm the big one." And then he throws Frank through a wall. And then he has to adapt his surrounding and use it, and he ends up having the guy fall through part of the floor. That's where you would actually get your oil changed. You would
Mm-hmm.
drive up on it, and then they'd work under you, getting your oil changed and putting the filters on or whatever it happens to be. He ends up getting him trapped there, and now he's brought the big guy to his level.
Right.
And it's very impressive, and it's very crazy to see him work in every movie, and the choreography is fabulous and amazing. uh, each movie is good. The second one probably not as good as the first one and third one, but the fight scenes and the control, and he never breaks his character. He is never beyond is, even though he seems like he's a bit of a hard guy and not a nice person. He's actually, genuine at heart. He gets really back to his military of protect and serve style.
He does.
Even though if you his cars, he must break.
I mean, this is a good guy. I mean, I like Jason Statham also. I even like him when he plays a character that's a bad guy. Um,
Hmm.
as you alluded to before. We'll talk about that at another time. But I'm sorry. What do you think, Steve? With the 10 guys that we've discussed so far, is there a clear winner really here?
Yeah,
What do you think?
I think you'll agree. I feel as impressed by
Excuse
guys.
me. Say again.
Maybe not Salah and White
Sorry, ladies
Tai
and
Chi.
gentlemen.
So you just in that they've uh, all gone through their various. I feel like Man is still the guy. Uh,
So you're saying Ip
his
Man is the guy?
character huge and muscular and smooth and well,
Hey, Steve. We're having difficulty. I'm having difficulty hearing you,
I
brother.
believe.
Can you hear me?
Can you hear me?
Sorry, ladies and gentlemen. First of all, I do apologize. I'm getting kind of under the weather, so it's hard to not sneeze and cough. I apologize for that up front. But also, too, we've had a few technical difficulties in trying to facilitate our show tonight. So please accept our apology for that. Um, and I guess we got a little long in the tooth again. It's something that we do when we're talking about a subject that we're really passionate about. So we appreciate you listening to us tonight on our top five martial artists in film. And we hope you enjoyed our conversation from some guys who are really passionate about that genre, first of all, but also these characters, not just the actors themselves, but the characters that they portray in these films and how their impact to the essence of the film is purely uh, uh, noticeable and infectious. So, um, any words in parting, Steve? Yeah, I do apologize, ladies and gentlemen. I'd like to say to you, thank you for listening to us here at A Real Point of View. And what about you, Steve? Any parting words before we get out of here?
Um, go and watch the movies that we've um some of the movies that we've talked about here today. Go experience.
Yeah, I think that's a good idea, and you'll understand our passion, especially if you're into
You there?
action films and adventure films, and these are purely action films. And even though they're majority of them are martial arts films, even those that aren't, it just shows you their capability and the characters that they play and how they infuse that character into the landscape of the films that they're in or TV series that they're a part of. Um, I'd like to thank you again for joining us here on A Real Point of View. Have a wonderful night. And again, check out these films and these actors and in other films. We know you'll enjoy them. We know you'll appreciate them. And they will make a difference in the films that you watch. So from me here at A Real Point of View, I'm Greg Morgan, the Real Movie Guy. Check me out on Twitter. And how about you, Steve? Any last words before we get out of here?
Well,
Can you hear me?
sorry.
Sorry, ladies and gentlemen. Have a nice night. We appreciate you. Take care and be safe during this holiday post holiday season. Take care.